Hello, welcome back to the Pinken YouTube channel, back for this week's Scout Report ahead of the Aston Villa fixture at Carrow Road on Saturday, a game that suddenly feels quite massive given the context of Norwich losing 2 games on the road against Crystal Palace and Burnley, both 2-0 of course. And when I look at the Norwich City starting 11 or potential starting 11 for this weekend, to me there seems quite a few conversation points this week, starting of course with the goalkeeper position. Obviously Tim Krul injured himself in that game against Burnley in the warm-up, did his lower back, has been ruled out subsequently until after the international break at Bournemouth. Ralph Fearman comes in at Crystal Palace, Norwich concede a penalty, he goes to save the penalty and then he gets substituted off, which could mean a first league start for Michael McGovern since April 2017 when he he played in Norwich's 3-0 defeat to Huddersfield Town away from home. Perhaps more pertinent is the goalkeeping situation. It's interesting to think just a few weeks ago Norwich named 2 goalkeepers on the bench in that win against Manchester City. This week it looks like they're going to have to rely on young Archie Mair to come onto the bench. Of course he signed from Aberdeen in the summer and is a Scotland youth team international. So looks like Michael McGovern is going to start in goal. Moving on to the left back position, again more injuries. Jamal Lewis, he didn't go off in the game against Crystal Palace but suffered a potential elbow fracture. So if he doesn't play, although in my opinion it looks like he might do, then Norwich will be reliant on either Philip Heiser coming in, and of course he played in the midweek EFL Cup trophy game against Crawley where the under-21s won 2-1 and had a free kick against the par. I think he set up the second goal as well. So does Daniel Farke opt to put Heiser in that position, or do we have a shift and Max Aarons goes to left back and Sam Byram come back in at right back? But I personally think Jamal Lewis may well be okay for this one. Of course we're filming this on the Wednesday, so before any press conference news. Also I think the Northern Ireland squad is meant to be out on Thursday, so it'll be interesting to see if Jamal Lewis is in that, because that will probably give us an indication of the scale of his injury. And then finally, in terms of the lineup, just that back 4 setup in terms of how Norwich line up with the 2 centre-backs. We've seen Ibrahim Amadou sort of become a makeshift centre-back in that position. It'll be interesting to see whether Daniel Farke does revert to bringing Grant Hanley back into the starting 11. Of course, Hanley himself has had fitness issues this season, hasn't played in the last 3 games. Instead, Amadou's played because of those injury problems. It'll be interesting to see whether he does bring the Scot back in for this encounter against Aston Villa, thus moving Amadou forward and almost trying to solidify the central area of the pitch, I think, where Norwich have conceded goals and looks quite vulnerable on the counter-attack. And I think a lot of Norwich City supporters are keen to see what Ibrahim Amadou can do from a defensive midfield position. And then finally, in terms of the Norwich starting lineup, not an injury this time, so this would be Daniel Farke's own accord, which I think would be quite nice for him. Marco Stiepermann, a lot of debate about him at the moment and just how he's adapted to Premier League life, and if he's adapted well enough. It'll be interesting to see again whether Patrick Roberts comes into that side, someone who only got a minute at Burnley and then only 10 minutes at Selhurst Park last Saturday. Will Daniel Farke change the structure of that attacking midfield position to move Marco Stiepermann out of it and give him a little bit of a rest? If he does that, does that mean Amadou moving forward to try and balance the midfield a bit more? There are so many questions for Farke to answer, I think, going into Saturday. And of course, he's got his arms tied behind his back a little bit because of the injury situation. But I think Marco Stiepermann is an integral part to what Norwich do currently, so it would mean changing and a little bit of adaptation, I think, tactically for Norwich in terms of how that midfield was structured, even if that was Kenny McLean moving forward, which I've had suggested this week, which I quite like the sound of. In terms of Aston Villa and their record at Carrow Road, they've not won at Carrow Road since 2013, so any of their last 4 visits. So recently not a great run at Carrow Road. They'll be looking to add to their 1 win of the season against Everton. So if we look at the starting 11 that played in the 2-2 draw against Burnley last week for Villa, they had Tom Heaton in goal, Matt Targett, Ongles, Mings, and I think it's Gibert, but my French isn't that great, so that might be wrong. They then play a 3 in midfield with Marvellous Nakamba, John McGinn, and Conor Hurahan with a front 3 of Grealish, El Ghazi and Wesley. I think Matt Targett was a doubt for this one, but Dean Smith has said that he will play. Just to look at 2 players specifically from their front. First and foremost, John McGinn. I think everyone's aware of his quality now, after, particularly Norwich fans, after an excellent year in the Championship, after coming down from Scotland. And you see, seems to have extended that into the Premier League again. Already scored 3 goals this season with 1 assist. Averages about 3 shots per game. If you look at Aston Villa, a lot of their shots come from outside the area, so he's a crucial component of what they do from an offensive sense. And he averages about 1.4 key passes per game, so you can see how integral he is in terms of their play and getting them up the pitch. So Norwich will have to combat his strengths, and again, whether that's moving Amadou into midfield and just having that increased physicality to try and marshal him out into wide positions, although Villa are a team who do like to get crosses into the box, particularly for Wesley, who I think Dean Smith has indicated might not start, but I wonder if that's just a little bit of mind games in terms of trying to get him revved up for Saturday's game. Another man as well, we can't look at Villa without looking at Jack Grealish. He hasn't scored in the Premier League this season. He was involved with all that controversy with VAR away at Crystal Palace as well. So Jack Grealish hasn't made the best start to Premier League life. He scored in a couple of goals in a couple of the cups. He's got 2 assists, but again 2.4 key passes per game. And with McGinn, although he's not perhaps their goal scorer, he is someone who does create opportunities for them and is very threatening. So, and again, operating just off that wing, you'll probably like to come inside and operate that pocket of space where perhaps you'd associate with a number 10 to allow the fullback to go on and get crosses into the box. And anyone who watched the Championship last season will be well aware of Jack Grealish's quality as well. Of course, Aston Villa haven't started the season too well. As I mentioned, only 1 win coming at home to Everton, and they put up a really good fight at Arsenal and Spurs, I think, earlier on in the season. So we've all seen the potential of that Aston Villa side and what Dean Smith can do with it. And I think what we probably won't see is the intensity of the pressing that perhaps we've seen from some of Norwich's opponents. They have very good individual talent in terms of McGinn, Wesley up front, of course signed for £22 million reportedly in the summer, a club record signing for them. Jack Grealish always seems to be on the cusp of the England squad. Again, another top talent, and a very solid midfield 3 in Nakamba, who is a bit more of an enforcer, Hourihane, who is a bit more box to box and all round, and then John McGinn, who can do it all, and wouldn't surprise me if he ended up at a club perhaps higher up the league table than Aston Villa next summer. But this does feel like a crucial game for Norwich City. Obviously, off the back of 2 away defeats and the game before an international break, it can really set the mood music for how perhaps their start of the season is viewed after this game. And being at Carrow Road, being again a game where there's lots of adversity placed on it, particularly with the goalkeeping and defensive situations, Daniel Farke will be very keen to get the crowd ramped up and expectations ramped down, I would imagine. If Norwich City, probably too early to define this one as a must-win game, probably one you'd probably refer to as a must-not-lose game. But with these games, they can kickstart seasons, and if Norwich City can get a win, and then they've got an international break and a bit of a break to try and get some more bodies out of the recovery room and back onto the training pitches for Bournemouth away after the international break. But it's going to be a pulsating encounter, I think, a really fascinating game. It's going to be interesting to see, particularly the way Norwich play, if it will be goals galore, if it will be 2 teams who are trying to feel each other out and are quite defensively organised. I think in Villa's case, that will be the way they approach it and try and hit Norwich on the counter-attack, which a lot of teams have done successfully this season. For Norwich, it'll be business as usual and trying to sort of impose their way onto the opponents and try and get 3 points in front of a packed Carrow Road. It promises to be an excellent game, so I'd probably put a bet on for 0-0, to be honest, after that. But fingers crossed, Norwich City can find another Premier League win at home. Of course, their home record has been good so far, both of their 2 wins coming at home against Newcastle and of course that win against Manchester City, which I think is an unwritten rule now. We have to get it into every single video that we do. We have to mention that. So if they can carry on that, then who knows? It should be a good game. And of course, Norwich have a very good record against Aston Villa at Carrow Road recently, so they'll hope that stands them in good stead this weekend. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, leave a like and make sure you subscribe to the Pinkin YouTube channel as well. All of the reaction and all of the analysis from Saturday's game will of course be all on our various platforms, pinkin.com. You know where to find it by now. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.